So, most of you who have been following this, Brexit disaster since the very beginning, since all the way back in 2016, you will know that especially this deal, whether through essentially by sheer absolute incompetence or by design, is designed to essentially make sure that Brexit never truly ends. And by that, we mean essentially the consequences, because the Brexiteers promised that there would be no consequences to this whole Brexit thing. They promised, sunshine and roses for everyone, a unicorn for every boy and girl in the land. But of course, as we've said before, there was this fantasy that they proposed that, Britain was this secret trading nation that had been held down by the shackles of the EU, when in reality, the world had significantly moved on. And if you've ever seen a guy called Jason Hunter, you will see that at one of his videos, he went to a Brexit demonstration, and one of the people kept on saying, "Oh, but we could do it in the 50s." And Jason Hunter's response was basically, the world has moved on since then. And that is exactly what has happened. And this refusal to admit that the world has moved on and that times have changed, the world has changed, is going to hit us very fast, very quickly. Because to try and keep the cover that Brexit is going okay does not relay the complete reality of the picture in the UK, and that is what we're going to go over today. Partly because of the complete half-baked Brexit deal that has been served up to us by Boris Johnson and the rest of the Brexiteers. So, please do remember to hit that like and share button. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. And thank you very much to all those people who do support me that way. So, today's article comes from the West Country Bylines, and the title is, "Think Brexit's All Over, Wait Until the Grace Periods End." So, despite the best efforts of the 87% of the mainstream media by circulation trying to distract you that the battering Brexit is giving businesses up and down the UK is at last filtering through. And bad as the news is, we have yet to see the worst, because the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, or the TCA, contains a number of grace periods which are putting off the evil hour when Brexit finally genuinely bites. What's more, the TCA itself has not yet been ratified by the European Parliament, so we face yet another Brexit cliff edge at the end of this month, and could still end up with a no-deal Brexit. Ignoring for the moment the thunderous no-deal Brexit cloud on the horizon, it is important to realise that the United Kingdom's situation, and that of the four home nations, is different from that of Great Britain, the three nations of the mainland. The Irish Protocol, or the IP, which is part of Boris Johnson's oven-ready EU withdrawal agreement, came into force on the 31st of January 2020. That objective is to prevent a hard border between the North of Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, which Brexit would otherwise entail. Essentially, it keeps Northern Ireland within the EU single market and customs union, while setting up an international border within the UK in the Irish Sea. However, as we are still in the transition period, the border is not operational, and Johnson has persistently lied that it did not and could not ever exist, only coming into effect with the TCA on the 1st of January 2021. Only then did the impact of the Irish Sea border begin to be felt, but we still aren't experiencing full Brexit. The IP and the TCA have grace periods which are delaying some of the pain which is yet to come. So we've talked about rules of origin first, so this is the first one. So the TCA only applies to goods that are deemed British or EU made. So it's important to determine the level of local content in the product. That's where the rules of origin come in, and they are a bureaucratic nightmare. If you're unable to buy a favourite product, it could well be because the application of rules of origin have made it completely uneconomical to now sell into the UK. And there is no problem if a product is made in the UK with imports that are 100% British or from the EU. Where it gets tricky is whether non-British or non-EU ingredients or components are used, and there is a different threshold for every item. For example, 20% of the weight of honey can be outside of the UK or EU, but if that falls to 0% for other foodstuffs like meat, it is possible to get around the rules of origin by processing a product brought in from another country, so that it is very significantly changed. However, rules about what qualifies as a transformation and how much the product has been transformed are quite complex. Painting or packing products do count as a processing, for example. Rules of origin are standard in any free trade agreement, but because the UK and the EU supply chains are so integrated, they need to be more tailored to approach what goes above and beyond the bog standard ROO clauses. Unfortunately, the British government was too much in a hurry to boast about having got Brexit done and refused to offer the extension to the transition period, which would have enabled it to negotiate a much better deal, and we are all paying for that price. So, the grace period on customs checks. This is something else that's going on as well. So this is where the situation between GB to the EU and GB to Northern Ireland diverge. So from GB to the EU, those products that still qualify for export, and some like shellfish and bivalve creatures did not. And there were no grace periods. The EU was ready to apply third country checks as it would to any other country. This is not a punishment. Go to Australia or the United States and you will see similar checks being applied. This is because the EU countries have a duty to care and protect the health and welfare of their citizens. The rules are based on World Trade Organization standards. However, the UK government was not ready at the practical level to implement some of these customs checks on the 1st of January, and facilities are still being built, systems are still being developed, and staff being hired. Our government, therefore, has unilaterally declared a grace period for all goods coming into the country, and tried to palm this off as a benefit for business, for whom it gave only 1 week to wade through the complete TCA and trying to figure out what impacts there would be at the end of last year. And this was completely insulting. Changing internal processes and information technology systems in such a short time is an impossibility. Businesses were not fooled by the apparent act of magnanimity, and they all know that they had been given had to be given ready to F our own businesses. The government would have thrown them to the wolves. And no customs documentation is required or checks performed on goods coming to the country at the moment. We effectively have a smuggler's charter, albeit that it is just hypothetical until somebody gets caught exploiting this opportunity. However, there are two very real impacts that have immediately arisen because of this. The absence of checks on EU imports are yet another hit to the competitiveness of British businesses, since to export they have to jump through all sorts of hoops that competitors on the continent do not. This makes it much harder for UK companies to compete in EU markets. Meanwhile, it's a free-for-all for importers, as EU companies do not face the same barriers in the UK market. This leads to the second immediate impact, that we aren't enforcing proper documentation and custom procedures. All sorts of goods of, at best known, unknown, and at worst, of suspect origin are now currently circulating in the economy. And it's a complete nightmare for UK competitors and a risk to UK consumers. For the businesses that did everything they could to prepare for Brexit, the grace period extensions are just an added insult to injury. They have invested in new processes, systems, staff that now cannot go live until the UK's unilateral grace period now ends, leaving them carrying a very heavy cost base and leaving them at a disadvantage against competitors. British companies could be forgiven for thinking that they are no longer on a level playing field, but but that is one that their own government is now showing more favourable treatment to their competitors. And for those of you who want to know what these unilateral deadlines are, the first one comes in on the 1st of October 2021. So this is a pre-notification and export health checks. This is required for animal origin products and includes goods that are only transit through the UK, say from France to the Republic of Ireland. The ECHs have been one of the most biggest issues on the UK to EU trade, with minor errors leading to dried shipments, and they are time-consuming and expensive and must be completed by a vet or another qualified professional. So the next one is on the 1st of January 2022 next year. And this is when physical checks begin at the border, including on animal and plant products, along with requirements for safety and security declarations. Some products, such as chilled mincemeat, fresh sausages, will be completely banned from entering the Great Britain from the EU. And March 2022. So physical checks begin on live animals and low-risk plant products. So from a cynical perspective, the benefit of these new deadlines for the government is that they would kick the worst effects of Brexit still further down the road, delaying those empty supermarket shelves once dismissed as Project Fear. They want to get to the next election with as many voters possible still not realising that Brexit was a bad idea and its worst impacts are yet to come. It's a big reason why many speculate that Johnson will call an early general election. So what's going on in Northern Ireland? Because this is still the biggest issue. So Northern Ireland should be performing the same checks on quality goods, those listed as being at risk of entering the EU, as GB ports should be performing goods coming from the EU. However, the government agreed a grace period from the EU for food parcels coming from Great Britain until the 1st of April 2021. Even with that grace period, there have been serious difficulties, and some of those Great GB businesses selling into Northern Ireland market are uniquely domestic players, not exporters, so they are unused to the complexity of international trade, and the net result has been the infamous empty supermarket shelves in Northern Ireland. While Michael Gove was still responsible for Brexit before Lord Frost got the gig, he requested the extend to the grace periods until 2023 and then acted unilaterally to do so. And the European Commission Vice President Morosi Savak said that a move amounted to a violation of the relevant subclause provisions of the IP. As a consequence, the EU would respond in accordance with the legal means established by the protocol and the wider Brexit deal, and there has been an announcement that the EU will take the UK over the court to the matter. So this will run and run. Meanwhile, some unionists feel betrayed by the way the British government has implemented Brexit, and they have been lost and been out on the streets every night since Easter, has resulted in ensuing violence. We've all seen that. So what's the moral of this story? If you try to rush a trade deal, the failure to include the right ingredients and then don't let it cook for the required amount of time, it will come out half-baked. This is what has happened with the TCA, and this is the 100% due to the callous negligence of our government. When the grace periods finally run out, the full extent of the mess will be plain for all to see. So, as you can see, a lot of this stuff really has been kicked down the road. And it's not until, when's the first one? October. Where was it? Yeah, so the first one really kicks in October. We've had one of April pass already, but it's not going to be until October of this year that it starts to kick in, and then immediately you've got January and then March straight away, which is going to have huge implications. And one of the interesting things that was said in that article is that Boris Johnson and co have been very, very eagerly try to get rid of the Fixed Term Parliament Act. Now, this is really worrying that they would try and get rid of this, because essentially what this means is that Boris Johnson and co could essentially try and call a general election early and then try and ride off some sort of hype and go, oh look, we did Brexit, we did it well, hasn't it all gone well? And then essentially try and win a general election off that supposed bounce. And it's definitely something that could happen. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that we could see maybe a general election called, especially if the Fixed Term Parliament Act does go. But at the moment, obviously, with we are in a state of national mourning, so at the moment, no business is really being done. But it's something that we have to prepare for and watch out for, because I guarantee you, many Tories are watching the Hartlepool by-election with very, very gleeful eyes, because they think, and I guarantee you, they think that they might be able to scoop up more red wall seats if they call a election sooner rather than later. And if that happens, Starmer needs to sort himself out. He needs to pull his finger out in a serious way, and Labour needs to get their act together incredibly fast. Because if that happens, if you think a Tory majority of 84 is worrying, there could be a potential majority of I think someone talked about it in being in at least the potential of the hundreds, and at that point, the opposition can do nothing to stop anything the Tories doing. Currently, they can't really stop the Tories doing anything at the moment. The only thing that is worrying the Tories so much at the moment is the fact that they are now parties within the parties, where the ERG used to be the party within the party. There are now multiple factions, and this has caused a lot of upset. So, like I say, we're just going to have to see how this plays out. That this is definitely one potential scenario that is now on the table that Boris Johnson could play. And as always, we're going to have to watch and wait and see what happens. So, thanks for watching. Please do remember to hit that like and share button. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And thank you all for watching, and thank you to all the people that do support me that way as well. And as always, we'll see you all next time.